conversation, discussion. But let's now move to my Texas colleague, senior physician in the House, Dr. Burgess, for 5 minutes.
Well, I thank the chairman and thank you for your endurance today. I know it's been a long day. You had a conversation with Senator Romney in the Senate hearing, and you implied that we're going to need bipartisan effort to work together to find common ground to save Social Security and protect Medicare. Is that still an operational statement?
You see an old congressional staffer here. All of these things in the president's budget will require Congress to act, so absolutely.
So sometimes it's a little disconcerting that some of the rhetoric that comes out directed at people like myself who have genuinely worked on this problem for a long time, being accused of things that are just simply not true. But I have to ask you, over the last 2 years, where have there been cuts in Medicare over the last 2 years?
Congressman, there have not been cuts from the president, presented in the president's budget, or administratively.
Any doctor in this country that you ask that question will tell you that they have suffered significant reimbursement reductions in the last 2 years, on top of a base inflation rate that is unlike anything that's been seen in 20 years. And that's just simply a fact. So I think we ought to agree that we can work together. No one's hands are completely clean here, but we need to be focused on what can be done for the future. Now, in previous budgets from President Obama and President Trump, they talked about site-neutral policy in payments in Medicare. Site-neutral payment policy being that it didn't matter whether the service was delivered at a doctor's office or a hospital, the reimbursement rate would be the same. And yet, current law is that under the outpatient payment rates, it costs 3 times to do something in a hospital what it costs to do in the doctor's office. But wouldn't you agree that site-neutral policy is something that we should be pursuing?
Congressman, I'm happy to look at those proposals. Clearly, that is not reflected in the president's budget, and yet he has a plan on solvency. So I offer to sit down and talk to you about those, but those are not reflected in the president's budget.
Correct, and that's just, it was curious to me why the 2 previous administrations talked about a site-neutral policy and this administration did not. Look, the fact remains, over the last 2 years, House and Senate Democrats and the administration worked together on mammoth reconciliation bills that didn't include any Republican input, raided money, $300 billion from Medicare to pay for Green New Deal programs. Why was it not a priority to fix these problems that you're now talking about? Why was it not a priority to fix these problems while the Democrats were doing their reconciliation bills in the last 2 years?
Congressman, it is extremely beneficial to the taxpayer and to seniors. The prescription drug benefit seen in the Inflation Reduction Act. We absolutely did address Medicare in a substantial way. Seniors will not only see reduced out-of-pocket costs, but also the taxpayer will, because we will pay less.
Yeah, let me just suffice it to say there's a difference of opinion on that, and there is a difference of opinion on what it does to the downstream effects of innovation. However, those cuts that occurred in the Part B program basically affect physicians' offices, and those dollars saved were basically used to go to pay insurance companies in the Affordable Care Act and increase subsidies of the Silver Plan in the Affordable Care Act. And it is that fundamental unfairness that makes people suspicious of what the administration has in store, what it has in plan when it talks about the future for Medicare and Social Security.
Well, I hope they look at the budget, because we're very clear. It moves the net investment tax to the trust fund. It raises the tax from 3.8% to 5% for those making over $400,000. And that is laid out very clearly for those who are concerned about what our policy is. And those policies will extend the solvency by 25 years at least.
But to look at other policies like a site-neutral policy, perhaps way the purchase of prescription drugs occurs in CMS, there are other programs or there are other approaches that would yield real savings right now, and it seems like the administration is not interested in pursuing those. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman